we find our brave adventurers, after they have defeated a few injured cultists and a band of kobolds, on their way to the raiders' camp that had just left Greennest. We are playing Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and this will be a campaign diary of my group's travel through this wonderful campaign. So, spoiler alert, if you are going to be playing this campaign and you don't want to have any of the storyline possibly ruined for you, I encourage you to stop watching now and go watch something else, and come back after you've played it to see how we did and see, you can compare notes, see what you did versus what my party did. If you are a DM about to run this campaign, you kind of want to get an idea of what some players have done in this campaign, feel free to keep watching, or if you just are interested in a good story, which I hope some of you are, I hope you watch and we can recant what this campaign diary is of my group's wonderful trek through Chapter 2 of the Hoard of the Dragon Queen in the Tyranny of Dragons. So, we find that the party had just killed off a few stragglers that had kind of fallen behind. It was a bunch of kobolds and cultists, and I threw in one giant lizard just to make it a little bit harder for them. They dispatched them actually relatively easy, and I was actually told by my party that they were very upset that I didn't throw in more and talk more about the fact that our cleric, playing the random bagpipes that I drew to give her, actually managed to save the charisma rolls that our bard was making, because the bard just unfortunately was not rolling real well, and took the fact that our cleric failed her stealth roll while trying to sneak up on them, and then turned it into and played it off as the fact that they were both trying to be charismatic and bardish, approaching these cultists to put them off guard, or at least to take them off their guard. It was really well done, so I will say yes, I give the cleric credit, good rolls, and good role-playing, and the fact that immediately taking the bagpipes and running with it. That cat was not part of the story, that's my cat. So there, I hope you now know that that was a very epic scene. So that has just happened. They've defeated them. They have befriended the one kobold, and they are preparing to move forward. From the interrogating of the kobold, with the little information they can get from this slightly befriended kobold or friended kobold that they have, that they're about an hour away from the rest of the camp. They start traveling. Kobold starts kind of lagging behind a little bit, and the bard, Callie, notices this and asks, what's wrong? And she sees that he's conflicted and is really worried. And eventually, talking with Callie, and a couple of rolls are made, they pull from the kobold that he understands they're going back to the raiders' camp, and that there's going to be a rear guard coming up. He mentions that they will have to check in with the rear guard. This, of course, puts the group a little bit on alert, like, there's a rear guard. And so they scout out ahead, they find the rear guard. Notice it's only about 8 cultists, but they're hiding. They've set an ambush to check on anybody passing through a very small choke point in the ravines of the plateaus that they're traveling through. At this, they decide that they're going to attack. And the kobold, again, very conflicted, eventually shares with them that even he thinks it would be a silly idea for them to attack, because he remembers that the rear guard checked in on a regular basis in the camp. And if you kill them, how will they check in? This causes an epiphany in the group, and they are like, oh, we hadn't thought of that. And they do decide at this point that they are going to bypass the rear guard and move past them. And upon coming across the horseshoe plateau of the raiders' camp, set in the center of it, protected by this horseshoe, they crawl to the edge, look down upon the camp, and then proceed to watch, find out what's going on in the camp. This leads to about them spending 4 or 5 hours watching. The camp eventually falls into a routine again, as less jovial as people were wandering in as they showed up. There was lots of chaos going on as wagons were still coming in and being unloaded, and there was revelry happening and slapping of backs and stories being swapped. And then as they watched, a bit more uniformity came into the camp. Guards were being more posted, chores were being done, weapons were being polished, things were being taken care of, foods were being made. They witnessed that there was some prisoners that were doing some chores that were still in chains, and eventually, after about nightfall, they were taken back to a certain area and then tied up, and that's where they noticed that there was one prisoner still staked up into this area that hadn't been moved and seemed in really, really rough shape. During all of this, they do notice that there is a one tent off to the side near a cave that is heavily guarded, and they do manage to catch a glimpse of that half dragon that they had fought earlier at Greennest. Upon seeing all of this, they devise the plan that they're going to wait till nightfall. They're going to take out an upper guard tower and then sneak down the ladder and proceed to try and infiltrate. But they wanted a distraction, so they started just talking amongst themselves and how to cause a distraction inside of this camp. And while they've been watching, they notice that there's a really big division between the kobolds and any of the humanoids who are the raiders. And they come up formulate the plan that they're gonna focus on this rift. They interrogate or talk to their kobold companion that they befriended a little bit more and get some information from him, and they find out that there is tension between them. The humanoids, or the humies, as he keeps referring to them, the humies do not like us very much, and they kick us and they make us do all of the chores and the disgusting things. And so they happen upon this idea that they convince the kobold, who at this point they've decided to start calling Eddie. Not quite sure if he's responding to this name or not. But they convince Eddie that he needs to go down and try and start to pick a fight with the humies. And he actually thinks this is a great idea because there's this couple of humies that have really bothered him, a sergeant in particular. And they give him the idea that he should go down and try and light a tent on fire. That would be a distraction. That the tent's getting caught on fire would be a distraction. The kobold agrees to this and takes off. And they give the kobold about 10 minutes, and they eventually see a lone torch. Now, to give you an idea, the scope of this camp, it's in this horseshoe cut out of a plateau. They are about 150 feet up in the air, looking down into the camp. Kobolds to the east, then it lowers down a little bit further into a shallow valley area, and in that area is where the humanoids are, and at the very far corner there is a cave as well as one solitary tent that's heavily guarded, with easily like 100 feet distance from anybody else. Like it's set away from everybody else, and also the cave, which nobody is going near while they've been watching this. Now the whole thing's about 700 feet across, east to west, about 300 to 400 feet wide at the widest part, but it's kind of oblongish, I will see if I can find a map and I will throw one up here, maybe here or here, and you guys can see what this looks like. So they see one pretty sure one they see a kobold break away from the main area, walk into the humanoid section of it, walk towards a cluster of tents, and they're like, great, he's going to do it. And they're waiting, and they're watching, and from what they can tell, he walks right up to the campfire in the midst of the tents and proceeds to just kick the campfire at a particular humanoid, and then, run backwards at this point, back in towards his area. Now, he kicks these coals and the fire up towards the humanoids. A bunch of them are hit with the debris, but it also does spread around and does manage to catch a couple of the tents on fire, and now and they light up. But at this point, some of those humanoids are on the fire, now chasing the kobold, but half turn back around to go put out the tents, and the other half go running towards them, and they run into so much of the kobolds are down up in arms, like, why are you attacking? And they are brushing shoulders, and it's really tense, right? I kept making rolls, and they get more kobolds involved, and then some more of the humanoids got involved, and at this, about a third of each are now kind of in this giant high school style show off over kind of in the section in the middle, and that was their distraction. I thought it was a really interesting idea. It was really cool and awesome. So they played that off. Now, Lutau and Remy both let loose with arrows and daggers and take out the 3 guards that are in the guard tower. And in one action, gone. Kill all three of them right then. And then jump down to the guard tower, search the guard tower. Don't find much there. It's a guard tower that's just utilitarian. They grab a few things from those guards, just in case, and then make their way down the ladder, the 6 members of my party. At the bottom of the ladder is the cooking area of the camp. And as they're all gathered down, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. A wearer of purple walks out and says, "What are you doing? Why are you out of your guard post?" And demands that 3 of them go back up to go back to guard duty. And that the other 3 to come with her. She's going to go and take care of this debacle that's happening. The party kind of goes with it. They obviously are a little taken aback that they're just immediately not attacked. And so the 3 kind of start walking ahead. Their hesitation, though, causes her to hesitate. And so the wearer of purple looks at them a little funny. And the 3 that she told to follow her, to walk ahead, start to actually do that. And then the other 3 look like they're about to go back towards the ladder and go back up the ladder towards it. And that's just enough to reassure. She starts to follow the 3 that she pointed off and proceeds to then take a dagger to the back of the head. And dead. So they take the wearer of purple's hat and stick it on Remy's head and drag her back behind the tents. So now Remy has the wearer of purple's hat. This gives them the idea that maybe they can use the wearer of purple to help them out. Remy decides she's going to walk over towards the command tent and see if they can get some of the guards to go help break up the riot. So Remy gets to about 50 feet from the guard tent when she's told to halt. Remy tries to explain that they were looking for more help, to help with the fight that's broken out between the kobolds and the raiders. Unfortunately, the guard is not swayed, very duty-bound, and will stay right here guarding this tent. Sympathizes with Remy's position, but he cannot move. The other guards kind of look sidelong and see this going on, but neither of them move either. Remy decides at that point to step back, goes back to the party to report in. Arkin, not having any of this, decides to let loose a guiding bolt at the guard. Misses. Hits the tent. This moment, after the tent has been hit by this arc, the flaps fly open, and Frolum comes stepping out, and in a magically enhanced booming voice demands to know what's going on. She takes a look at the party, she takes a look at the fight going on, and again shouts, demanding everything stop. Looking at the party, she kind of realizes, she realizes that this looks like the party described to her from Greennest, and demands that they are captured. Raiders start coming out of the cook tents. Raiders from the fight between the kobolds come forward. Now Arkin, using the same spell, booms her voice, saying, "No, fight for justice, fight them." Unfortunately, the raiders and the kobolds are not swayed by the unknown of Arkin's demands and the fear they have from Frolum, and decide to follow. The party tries to talk the way out of it a little bit. Hare throws down a challenge because Sinrath actually stepped out of the tent shortly thereafter, confirming that these were the people from the Greennest. Hare throws down a challenge to Sinrath, demanding a second chance, another fight. Sinrath tries to talk Frolum into doing it. Of course, is shot down. The party is then bound by their hands, or bound by the wrists with rope, told that they shall be taken to the other prisoners and will be slaughtered in the morning. Arms bound and marched off, knowing that they will die most likely in the morning. They wait for the elk to wild shape to run out 2 hours later, and she's then also bound. And once they get to the prisoner area, all of one ankle is shackled on each person to a 20-foot length of rope that is embedded in the ground. There are 8 other prisoners there, also shackled in very much the same way, and 1 prisoner strung up on a post. Now, the one that goes on the post turns out to be the Ocean, a monk that Lutau actually knows and has some history with. He tries to approach him and is told not to, and so he goes back and meets up with the rest of his party. Hare flexes her muscles and snaps the ropes binding her, and is able to then untie the rest of the party. Using Remy's thieves' tool, which she had strategically hidden about her person, they then proceed to pick the locks with the help of Callie and Lutau. as well as the locks of the prisoners. And so now the party and the 8 prisoners are free, except for the ocean. The party decides to sneak into the guard tent that has their equipment in it. Find one already sleeping guard, which is dispatched quickly. And Lutau, Remy, and the not-so-stealthy Callie proceed to gather the rest of their equipment and bring it back into the tent, disperse it amongst their party. Callie plays a song, a lullaby, that proceeds to put the rest of the guards to sleep. In this piece that they find, they devise a plan. Originally, they were going to try and sneak out along the wall past all of the kobolds. But the prisoners are having none of this. They've seen how vicious the kobolds are, and the fact that in low light they actually are pretty vicious and are good guards. That's why they're at the entrance. They recommend that they simply scale the walls. And they've seen others do it, and it's quite easy. The chains were what was keeping them from doing it, and the exhaustion. But with the help of the very strong adventurers, who they then carry, the adventurers gather a prisoner apiece, as well, except for the few that feel that they can follow, and carefully they take their time and scale the wall. The guards around closest to them are all asleep. The rest are either on the way to bed or are still partying and drinking. They have a few close calls, but they manage to scale the entire wall and get out of there. 5 minutes into them leaving, they hear alarms, and they make out that search parties are being dispatched. They know that they're missing. The prisoners are gone. The guards are looking for them. The cultists and raiders are looking for them. The next hour, 2 hours, they play kind of duck and weave and dodge and hide from the search parties, but they are able to elude them pretty easily. Leotian fills them in on what he was doing there and what he knows of the cult of the dragon and his fears of the fact that they are now switched gears into raising of Tiamat from their normal, just trying to raise Draco liches. That worries him, though he thinks there might be dissension in the ranks. But he was unable to find out more, and he's very, very worried about what's inside of the cave. They were very, very secretive over it while he was there and would not spill anything about it. He says he has a proposition for the adventurers once they get back to Greennest, and he has a chance to rest a bit more. So he's allowed to rest on the back of one Hare as they make their way the 5-hour trek back to Greennest. Now, they make it back to Greennest. This officially ends Chapter 2. We get into Chapter 3 because Chapter 2 kind of went relatively quickly for my party because of their decisions. At Greennest, they meet back up with Governor Nighthill and Escobar, who's very happy to see them. The prisoners are taken and immediately given some care, taken in by the rest of the townsfolk to be taken care of and to be healed. Governor Nighthill debriefs them quickly about what they found, pays them. At this point, Leotian says before he goes for his own rest that he employs the adventurers to go and spy on that camp. He says he'll pay them an additional 150 gold apiece if they are willing to go and spend the next 2 days watching the camp and then meet him in another city, which I will put a doobly-doo here because I forget the name. The party, of course, agrees and take a long rest themselves, rest up inside of the keep. About 2 p.m., they take back off again on their horses, make the trek back to the camp. Having a better idea of the layout and coming during the day this time, or at a different end of the height of the day, they make their way there and come up from the east this time. They actually find a way to the plateau, then get the horses up to the top of the plateau, sneak up towards the camp, and find it empty. Yeah, completely empty. The shacks and huts that the kobolds were in were burnt to the ground. The humanoid tents and shacks and huts are still there, but from a distance it even looks like they had packed everything they thought was valuable and had taken off. The party decides to watch, sit and rest in shifts and watch. Over the course of the hours that they're there, they see a cart show up with some hooded, drab figures that then make its way into the cavern. Upon inspection and looking at it, they realize there's about 5 or 6 very large hooved beasts in the back. A half hour later, the cart leaves the cave, empty, and makes its way back out. Many hours later, the cart returns right about dusk, just after dark. This time with more hooded figures in the back. There's 2 actually driving it now. There's 4 more in the back, and with another 5 to 6 large hooved creatures. They go into the cavern. A few minutes later, they come out. cart's empty, and they make their way to a group of the tents. Small campfires have been made, and it seems that they bed down for the night. The people on watch at this point were Laurice and Arkin. They decide that they want to know what's going on. So they climb down and make their way to the cave. And they find nothing, at least in the entrance. Now, at this point, it's dark. It's nighttime. There's no torches. The only fire is over by those figures that had brought the carts in. So they decide that they probably shouldn't actually go in without the rest of the party. They make their way back up, gather the rest of the party, and then make their way all the way back down again. They make their way about 60 feet into the cave. Arkin reveals a secret of herself when she drops her hood, realizing it's pitch black. And while most of the party has dark vision, Lu Tao the monk does not. He's human. Dropping her hood, she reveals that she actually has a slight glow to her. This glow actually helps give it a little bit of light around. And in that dim light, Lu Tao can actually see a little bit. So Lu Tao is going to stick very close to Arkin. Now, like I said, they get about 60 feet into the cave. And at that 60-foot mark, the axe of warning warns the party of foes nearby. And that's where I left the party off. What is that party going to do? What are they going to find in that cave? Where'd all the meat go? And where's Eddie the Kobold? To find out the answer to these questions, watch next week. I'm Haven the Hare. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to help support me and what I'm doing with this channel, feel free to buy my card game that I created down below, as well as I'm putting a link to my Etsy store where I make chainmail dice pouches. Feel free to purchase those. Christmas is coming up, at least around the time when I'm filming this, but hey, who doesn't want a new dice pouch? And I do make custom orders. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, comment, find me on Reddit, find me on the Book of Faces. I'm all over the place. Again, Haven the Hare, just like a rabbit. I love talking about this stuff, even campaigns like this where people even have problems with them. I find the holes and the sandboxing of campaigns and filling in the blank spaces is part of the creative juices. And I love doing that. And I love hearing how everybody else does it as well, and sharing how I tackle these things and incorporating it. So feel free. Love talking about this stuff. Hope you guys all have a great week. And until next time, may you make all of life saving.